what is your definition of success?
My professional definition of success is that, either an industry or a group of people has been fundamentally impacted by something that you've built. And I think that, that's what made me the most proud, which was when I showed up in Nigeria, 2 years after we started FCG, and the Uber driver there had sold his personal car via our service, without knowing who I was, but it was very cool. Our signs were everywhere and everyone talked about our service. And that kind of changed how the used car industry functioned in a massive country like Nigeria. So I think impacting a group of people or impacting industry is my definition of professional success.
Hi, and welcome to Indian Explorers. In this podcast, we talk about Indian success stories. I am Sabrina, and together with my co-host Amit, we will get to understand the journey of our guests and what really drives them. The optimism, patience, idealism, and courage, these are the attributes we want to bring to life in our conversations with them. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and share it with others. We have a very special guest today. He's genius, a prodigy. But before we get to that, anything else you want to discuss? Because I'm excited for this one.
I think he's done so many things, this guest, that I think we should talk about him a little bit, because I don't think the 45 minutes that we normally spend on the guest is going to be enough. Let me start, Sabrina, by saying how I know the guy, right? Okay. His name is Sujay Tyle. And he started this company called Merama. I believe it has headquarters in Mexico and Sao Paulo. Correct. And what it is, it acquires brands that are performing well in online marketplaces like Amazon, right? So imagine there are these product managers that have brand X, and brand X has started getting some traction on Amazon in any market, say Mexico or Chile or anywhere. And they don't have enough capital, and the owners want to focus on the product. They'll come on board, they'll buy majority stake, and they'll give you the sales and marketing expertise. They'll open up the product and the channels across the whole region. So Correct. That's what Merama does. And the reason why I brought my attention is because they were, I believe, the fastest unicorn, i.e. over $1 billion in valuation in Latin America in, I believe, the history. Like in very few months.
It's Merama's currently valued at $1.2 billion.
I think that's the press release that we read, given what's happened in the market in the last year and WeWork and all the other things. I believe they're valued far below that. But why don't we ask him that question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's see if he answers that. So the reason why I know them is because Merama, a couple of years ago, offered to acquire our company because we are in Chile in the same space. And not to get into details, because of the NDAs we signed, the deal did not go through.
Okay. I can't wait to hear more about his upbringing. He has a brother who's just as brilliant as him. He went to Harvard at the age of 15.
How is that possible? How do you get into Harvard at 15?
I don't know, because I didn't even go at 18. So
I'm not even jealous anymore. I'm angry now. Like, how does someone get to Harvard at 15? Let's add that to the questions.
Yes. Should we get to him, or anything else you want to discuss before?
Yeah, I want to. So before Merama, he actually ran a used cars marketplace in various countries in the emerging markets. And it was acquired by OLX Group, which was part of Naspers.
Out of Europe? In Europe, correct?
I don't think they're European. I think they're Middle East, Asian. Okay. I'm not sure. But they were acquired. His company was acquired in 2019 for $700 million, all cash. Yeah. So I want to know what he did with that cash. I hope he's not put it all into Merama.
He was also in his 20s when this happened.
Yeah, late 20s.
Mid-20s. Yeah. To top it all off, he was ranked in 2003 when he was in high school. He was ranked number 2 in the US for his age group in table tennis.
Oh, you're really pissing me off, Sabrina. That's my game.
No, I'm going to piss you off even more. He and his brother started an organization. Um, I think they were teenagers at the time, to help fund hospitals or people who are going to get eye surgeries in hospitals in India.
So he's a good guy
What
as
are
well,
your
Sabrina.
kids doing today?
Watching Mr. Beast on YouTube. Yeah. He was also one of the first Peter Thiel's 20 under 20 fellows and was
Right.
named on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, as well as Goldman Sachs top 100 intriguing entrepreneurs 3 years. And to add it all, to, to make it even worse, he was an intern in Blackstone.
Yeah. I hope we could keep up with it. I hope we understand this podcast we're doing today.
Pretty impressive resume.
Very impressive. I'm blown away already just by reading everything about him. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him in the next few minutes.
Sure. Since we've got a few minutes before he comes on board, Sabrina, I wanted to ask you, if you had to eliminate WhatsApp or Instagram on your phone, which could you not live without?
Right now, you're sending a lot of WhatsApp messages, so I might get rid of that one. No, just kidding. I would actually pick Instagram to keep, because the people that I communicate with on WhatsApp, I also have on Instagram, but I have so much more on Instagram. I do get some news on Instagram. I connect with other people. I'd keep it's entertaining. I
Okay.
keep Instagram. What about you?
I think that's the wrong answer. I
I'm not
think
doing business on WhatsApp, so that's why it doesn't
even if I don't do
phase me that
business,
way.
I use WhatsApp throughout the day. Instagram, I do 10 minutes a day. Instagram for me is photos, but WhatsApp is communication. It's personal chat. My wife
But I
messages
can do
me.
that on WhatsApp also.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about WhatsApp.
I mean, on Instagram, I could do that on Instagram also. In the US, I'm not using WhatsApp with anyone who lives in the US.
Wow.
I'm using iMessenger or
Okay.
texting.
I wonder what Zuck would say to the same question.
Yeah,
He owns both.
right? Exactly. That's why.
Yeah. Do you know in 2012 he bought which one was it? In 2012 he bought Instagram for $1 billion. They had
Mhm.
13 employees, and everyone was like shocked. And then 2 years later, he buys WhatsApp. It was supposed to be for 16 billion, but at the end, it ended up being $21.8 billion. And
But I don't
that's
know
just
if he'd
crazy.
give up any, because it's a different demographic. You live in a different country than I do. I mean, that in itself shows why
Yeah, I mean,
both are used differently.
yeah, just India alone has 500 million people on WhatsApp,
Yeah.
and Brazil has 147 million people.
I would be interested to see what the US numbers are.
Yeah, I don't know those numbers.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I've asked people, like, for the soccer parents, like, let's use WhatsApp, and some of the parents are like, "No, I don't like I don't want to use that. I don't want another app on my phone." So I think
wow.
we use it differently here.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea on usage, there's 2 billion monthly active users on Instagram. That same 2 billion number is there for WhatsApp, but not monthly, daily.
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 Yeah.
I mean, that's how much more popular
That's why I think
WhatsApp
the demographic is totally different for both.
and
And
the
the
se-
usage, the purpose.
and the second chat in the world after WhatsApp is, guess,
iMessenger,
Facebook Messenger, their own,
Facebook
with
Messenger. Oh,
1.3 billion people.
wow. He has both.
So, final question, Sabrina, since I like to do your multiple guesswork, let's play a game. How long did it take for 1 million users in, say, Netflix?
From the inception of Netflix?
How long did it take when Netflix started for them to have the 1 millionth user? Quick
6 years.
answers.
6 years.
Not bad. 3.5 years.
Okay.
Facebook.
Ooh, for 6 years.
10 months.
That fast?
Twitter.
3 months.
24 months. Threads. The new
Ooh, Threads. Within the week.
1 hour.
Oh, 1 hour. Well, I was right.
Within a week, they had over 10 million. Spotify.
Ooh, Spotify. I don't know anything about Spotify, other that Indian Explorers is on there.
Good plug.
Month.
5 months.
Okay.
And last but not least, ChatGPT, OpenAI.
Oh my gosh. 2 weeks.
5 days.
Okay.
Thank you for being a good
I'm
sport,
not
Sabrina.
way off. Usually I'm way off on numbers. I wasn't way off today.
You were pretty good.
Yeah, those were good stats. I enjoyed that.
All right, let's bring on Sujay.
Perfect. Sujay Tyle. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Merama, based in Mexico City and Sao Paulo. Merama builds and grows the largest e-commerce brands in Latin America and is backed by leading global investors like Advent and SoftBank. It's currently, or a year ago, we read it was valued at 1.2 billion. He is also a venture partner at Balderton Capital and active angel investor.
Before that, he was co-founder and CEO of Frontier Car Group, a used cars marketplace that was acquired in 2019 by the Naspers Group for $700 million all cash.
He is one of the first Thiel 20 under 20 fellows and was named to the Forbes 30 under 30 list. He was named to Goldman Sachs' top 100 intriguing entrepreneurs list in 2013, 2018, and 2019.
To make things worse, he attended Harvard College, Harvard Law School, and Harvard Business School. Let's get into it, Sujay. Welcome to the show. Is it true you entered Harvard when you were 15 years old, and how is that even possible?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And it is true. However, I give all credit, actually not just for that, but I think everything that I've ever done, to my parents. I mean, I skipped grades when I was very young, and so my parents accelerated me at a very young age. And so it just so happened when I got through the school system in the US, I was 15 by the time I graduated. I turned 16 relatively quickly when I got to Harvard, but yeah, I was definitely the youngest one in my class.
When we moved to the US, I skipped 1 grade, but there was no way I was going to Harvard at 17. So kudos to you. It's fantastic.
No, that's very kind.
In this pod, Sujay, we try and get into it, and we always start with a difficult question. So I have the privilege today. Let's talk about Bill Ackman's letter, Free Speech versus Hate Speech, and how it reflects to the letter he wrote to President Claudine Gay. What are your thoughts?
You're referring to the Israel-Palestine one just now, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And anyone that speaks out against it. I mean, listen, I think that Bill Ackman's always had pretty radical views on things, but I think, listen, I think that, you know, the context of Ackman's letter, I think, was quite misspoken. You know, there was basically a letter circulated at Harvard to a bunch of student groups saying, you know, do you support basically a genocide on Palestine? And those are the wordings or something like that. And I know some of the kids who got circulated the letter, who are leaders of some of the organizations there. And a lot of them were just friends of friends of friends. And they say, hey, can you sign this letter without reading it? So I think there was a lot of kind of reference given to people that was a little underdeserved. and because people don't actually feel that way, but signed a letter because their friends were. Furthermore, I think that in student body organizations, one president doesn't stand for the views of the entire group, and so I think that's why. So I think Ackman's letter that said anyone that's part of these groups, should not be eligible for certain internships or jobs, is a little ridiculous, and I think so it takes the context of that. But I think the general basis is, I think people have their own political views, but I think having that affect kind of their prospects and outlooks is a pretty ridiculous thing. I mean, at both of the companies I've ever done, we've operated in relatively religious places, yet we've never let political views or religious views cloud anyone's hiring decision.
I really appreciate you answering that candidly, Sabrina. The reason why I brought it up is because Bill Ackman, very influential founder, VC, Parisian Capital, whatever it's called, he controls a lot of billions of dollars. He actually wanted the names of all the individuals who signed this letter. And it was a bit extreme, I thought, and I like what Sujay said. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. I want to take it back to the beginning. I want to hear more about your upbringing. When, you said when you moved to the US, correct? You were born outside of the US, how your parents, raised you and your brother, your travelings, I read a little bit about. If you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. And sorry, I misspoke. I was born in the U.S. My parents moved to the U.S. from India. But I meant when I went through the grade school system all in the U.S. And now I live outside the U.S. And so I think that's why. Sorry for the confusion. But no, listen. My parents were immigrants from India at a time in which it was much easier to immigrate from India and all other countries for graduate school, and they, like many of their peers, had an arranged marriage. My brother and I were born. I have an older brother, Sheil, and the two of us were born in California, and have kind of moved around throughout our lives. And I think that one of the things that my parents promoted from a very young age for both of us, which leads into my work and interest, has been exposing us to the wider world, and not just tourist destinations, but emerging markets, orphanages in India, charities in Africa. And so early in our development, all of our summer vacation trips and, spring break trips or whatever were usually to kind of esoteric places in the world. And that gave us a love of traveling and gave us kind of a real world view of what's going on outside the US, because the US, especially in California or New York, is quite a bubble. And so the other thing is, I think the U.S. education system is a pretty rigid system in many ways. But my parents, because they had to, claw their way to America without much money, we're not proponents of breaking rules, but they were the proponents of seeking opportunities outside of the rules. And I think, I think the most defining experience of my childhood was doing scientific research from a young age. And so my dad's a scientist. He basically put us into a lab when we were 11 or 12 years old, and different labs. And we ended up basically going from school to lab every day, doing science research and actually creating something. And, we ended up, really creating some novel stuff. And I think that also gave us confidence to say, hey, even at a young age, we can build stuff and give us exposure to all these countries. So I think that was the foundation of my childhood that probably answers to your question.
So Sujay, if I had to do a pie chart or 100%, and you had to break down who you are today or your success to date between parents, hard work, and luck, let's just name those three things. What percentage would be parents versus luck versus hard work? Difficult one, but
it's a difficult one because I think the parents enforced the hard work or inspired the hard work. And so there's a bit of overlap in those two. But I think, I would probably say success to date would probably be maybe 40% parents and then 30% luck, 30% hard work. I think that, but I think the parents' influence is all hard work. So it ends up being 70-30.
I agree with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
really?
I think early was forced, but then it became my own prerogative.
Your dad's going to call you once this goes live saying, son, why aren't we 80% and the other two 10-10?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Or 90, 10, or 100% zero.
Yeah,
No,
that's what my parents would say.
I
no,
have to tell
I do
you,
believe that. I really do believe that.
when you're telling us about, where your parents were taking you, not the typical tourist destinations,
Yeah.
we of course, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and that's what we do, the Disney World, the skiing. But she has this, she has a big heart, and she keeps snacks in the car so that when she sees a homeless person on the street, she asks, "Can you roll down the window so I could give it to them?" And
Wow.
this morning, when I was reading where your parents took you, I emailed it to my husband, and I was like, no more Disney World, no more New York City. This is what we're going to do, because she has a passion for it. So why not? So you're inspiring me that I, an Indian explorers, is inspired. So thank you for inspiring me.
No, and by the way, I feel bad because I think I don't want to deprive your kids of fun destinations either. We did
They
do
have
a lot of
plenty
fun
of
things
fun.
too. Yes, we did do a lot of fun things too. But I think we did do a little off the beaten path stuff a lot of
I
times
do
too.
India and Spain, in-laws,
Yeah,
in-laws, because we live in
yeah,
Chile, and
yeah.
my in-laws are in Bombay, and my mom and dad are in Spain. So flying from Chile, as you know, is so
So
far
far,
and
everything.
so
Yes.
expensive to just travel anywhere. And now we now I got a third boy, so now we're five. So it's just difficult to travel.
No, also, I mean, I think growing up in Chile, I think is exposure in and of itself, right? And the
Absolutely.
number
Yeah.
of Indians growing up in Latin America is very few.
So
So
Jay,
Jay,
I never
you
asked
were,
you.
oh, go
Sorry, I
ahead, go
just
ahead.
wanted to ask him before we move on, because we've spoken about your daughter, my family, my in-laws. Are you married? Do you have a family with three kids? What's your
No,
status?
no, no, no. I'm not. I'm not married. I have a partner. But no, my immediate family, I guess, would be my partner and my older brother and parents. But no,
Okay,
no wife or kids right now.
great.
So you were awarded the Peter Thiel 20 Under 20 Fellowship. You're at Harvard. Can you tell us a little bit, people listening, what that is and where you took that 100,000 to focus on?
Yeah, sure. So the Thiel Fellowship, I think, has gotten a slight wrong perception and wrong kind of overlook or overview in the press.
Okay.
So I'll comment on that. And then number two, I think it's changed since I've gotten it, because it's still offered. Um, One, I think Peter Thiel, obviously, you know, when he invested in Facebook, his one requirement was Zuckerberg had to drop out of Harvard and basically devote his entire attention to Facebook, and that obviously worked out pretty well. And I think that the money, by the way, comes from a nonprofit, so he gets no equity in companies or anything. And so the Thiel Fellowship is not a money making organization, but I think the perception in the press is that, oh, Peter Thiel hates education, but that's not the case. I think it was that most universities, if not all universities, especially in the US, will allow you to take time off and come back, without really asking any questions. And so his idea was, you have the most entrepreneurial ideas when you're young, and if you have a backstop of being able to go back to school, then you can take even riskier moves. Versus if you graduate and then you start a company, especially if you have a family, whatever, your risk tolerance changes, because you have dependents. But at that age, you don't. And so his idea was, hey, college can wait. If you have a great idea, let me give you the resources to live and eat while you go explore that. So the $100,000 was not just to invest in the company or to even run the company. It was basically to cover your basic needs. And so, there was another option, which was if you just had an interest in entrepreneurship, you could also do something. So I ended up, thinking that entrepreneurship was interesting. I hadn't really explored it. My brother Sheil, who I mentioned, who's a few years older than me, he went to Stanford and then was a venture capitalist. And so he was, telling me about all sorts of consumer internet companies that they were investing in. He led an investment in Snapdeal, which at that time was, the fastest growing e-commerce platform in India. And so it kind of inspired me to say, hey, not only is there entrepreneurship, but there's entrepreneurship outside of our borders, and I want to explore that. And so that's why I ended up applying and got it. And to date now, there have been 200 fellows, because it's been around for almost 10 years, and there's 20 fellows a year. And the companies that the fellows have built during that program, are worth probably like 25, $30 billion now. And so the hit rate, the success rate of the Thiel Fellows has vastly surpassed any other fellowship program or incubator out there. And so I think the experiment worked.
And is that when you started focusing on emerging markets?
Not at the time. No, I mean, I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, to be honest. I mean,
Okay.
I was, I don't even, how old was I? I think I was like 17 or something. And, I wanted to learn about what entrepreneurship meant and kind of see an early stage company, because at that time, especially in Ivy Leagues, like, the companies that were coming to recruit students were like Goldman Sachs or Facebook or Google. No startups were coming to campus. It was not a
Right.
sexy thing. Like the Social Network movie, I think, made entrepreneurship a sexy thing for the first time. And that was right when I got the Thiel Fellowship. And so I ended up basically cold emailing a ton of entrepreneurs and who I just read about online. And there was one guy named Eitan Elbaz who lived in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And he was one of the co-founders of Applied Semantics, which ended up becoming Google AdSense and probably the greatest acquisition Google ever made pre-IPO. And he was starting a new company. And he to date remains one of my mentors, but he took a risk on me and said, hey, just come join us
That's
on this
fantastic.
early stage company called Scopely in LA. And so I ended up basically joining a company as like a mid-level guy. That was my first entrepreneurial experience with a Thiel Fellowship.
What about Blackstone? Like you did an internship there. That's like impossible to get. How'd you get into that?
That was prior to the Thiel Fellowship. So when I got the Thiel Fellowship, I had finished 2.5 years of college. And after my first year of college, that summer internship that I did was at Blackstone in Tokyo, actually. Wow. And it was cool. I mean, I think that was that candidly is one of the greatest benefits of attending Harvard, is that you have such cool opportunities and cool alumni all over the world that like to help their students out.
Let's start with Frontier Car Group. How did that come about?
Sure. I mean, so Scopely, it was a gaming company. I was doing business development, but mostly just learning from this great entrepreneur. And by the way, I left Scopely after like a year and 2 months. I wasn't there very long. And Scopely just last year, 10 years later, I think now, or 11 years later, just sold for $5.5 billion. And so, that ended up being a huge, huge success. And I was there kind of when we were 10 people in the room. So it's very, very cool. And I'm really proud that I could be there. But I don't think I contributed at all, by the way, to that success, but still cool to see. And, I ended up kind of dabbling around in a couple other things. And then I went back to school. I didn't start, the company. And by the way, we're 3 Indians on the call. We know how much education means, especially to our ancestors. And I think that me leaving college was a very difficult thing for my parents, because, for them, that's everything. They came to the US for that education, and, their son leaving college was a very big thing. So, I knew I eventually wanted to go back. And I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to start or what I wanted to do. So after Scopely, I ended up going back to school, and I ended up finishing my undergrad. And not only that, I ended up going to business school and law school. I only started Frontier Car Group in my first year of graduate school. And that was in 2016. So there was quite a gap between the Thiel Fellowship and when I started FCG.
But speaking of Frontier, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, Argentina, Poland, Nigeria, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, and USA. I can't name any other company or any product that is available in those specific markets and only in those markets. Like, how do you go about thinking about entering Pakistan and India and Chile?
Yeah.
I mean, forget the time zone and how difficult it is. Like,
sure.
Are these acquisitions or?
No, they were not acquisitions. So let me tell you the very quick story. So you're giving me a lot more credit than I'm due, because that list of countries was when we exited the company. When we started the company, it was a significantly smaller list. And so we kind of built up to that list of countries over 4.5 years.
Which you built?
We built them. Yeah. I mean, my team built them with us. I didn't do everything alone. We had, I think I'll get into this and probably later, but I think that one thing that I made so many mistakes so many mistakes at FCG, a lot of things in my life. I think one thing that I've gotten right, and something I fundamentally believe in, is that surrounding yourself with the right partners and being very generous with equity to those partners, even if it wasn't their idea, even if benchmarks say it should be lower or whatever, being extremely generous yields the best results over time. And because you either win together, or if you basically are selfish on those things, you end up basically owning 100% of zero. And I think at FCG, because I was in school, I was sitting in Boston at law school and business school, going to class every day. I ended up bringing in this guy, Peter, who's one of my closest friends today now. But, he had spent a long time at Rocket Internet, knew places all over the world, knew people, and we ended up becoming equal partners. And, I credit him with a lot of the success of bringing in phenomenal founders to be the GMs of the various countries and run the operations on the ground. And so that took a lot of pressure off of us, and allowed us to be present in lots of countries.
I watched an interview you did, and you're talking about FCG and how the idea, I guess, continue or progress. And you talk about Carvana.
Yeah,
The concept of Carvana. We had a Carvana, just a couple of miles away, and I never understood the concept, of just buying a car online or
That's the vending machine?
Yes.
They have the vending machines.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you explain, people want to come. It's a big purchase. People want to come and touch it and drive it and see
Sure.
it, and it makes sense. So you ended up selling FCG 4 years later.
Correct. Almost exactly 4 years after we started it. Yeah.
Okay. To a company in Europe, correct? Are they European?
They were actually, it's a South African company that ended up
Okay.
relisting in Amsterdam, but it's a South African company, but it's a holding company of several different assets.
Okay.
And those
got
assets
it.
operate all over the world.
Okay.
You can see Sabrina and I do good research before we interview people.
No, it's actually, it's funny because Naspers or Prosus is this unbelievable company that is one of the top 10 internet companies in the world. Biggest. No one really knows who they are, but
Yeah.
they're the largest holders of Tencent in China, and that stake alone is worth, I think, $140 billion. And so, but then the largest owners of Delivery Hero, Baidu, so many large companies across various verticals. But the name Naspers doesn't really mean much, and so not many people know about them.
So
So
what
the
did you do with the
company-
$700
Oh, go
million?
ahead.
That's the
Yeah.
main question. That's what we want to know.
Yeah,
Why you didn't retire?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I did not receive $700 million. The company sold for about that much. I think that we were very lucky at FCG. Also, speaking of the luck, your question a few minutes ago, we were able to bring in really phenomenal investors throughout the journey. And when we started FCG, I think the idea was that, basically, to your point, Sabrina, this sale and purchase of a used car is a very big purchase, especially in emerging markets, because car values are very high, especially, and GDP per capita are very low. And so, the same Honda Civic in Indonesia costs double as much as it does in the US. And so selling and buying those cars is a very big decision. And we wanted to make that more transparent at FCG. And we didn't know what countries would work. And so to your point, Amit, the reason we started so many countries was because, hey, maybe 2 would work. And so we wanted to have a wide net. And it ended up being that most worked, which was great. Another point of luck is that Naspers was probably one of the only acquirers of this business. We could have sold different businesses, different countries by themselves. But Naspers was one of the few companies that operated in all these geographies. And so we were very fortunate. They were excited about it. It fit their thesis perfectly. And it was a great partnership that we ended up having.
Sorry, I don't think you answered the question.
Yeah. So what did I do with the money? So first of all, when we sold, we had gone through 4 rounds of funding, right? And I didn't own, again, I brought in partners. And so we shared equity very generously. And so I still own double digits ownership when we sold the company. And the benefit of selling to, a large public company is that, at least in our deal, we didn't have any earnouts. And so we could kind of, it was a pretty clean transaction. However, I think for me, my lifestyle never has changed, to be honest. I've never owned a car. I've never owned a house myself. I don't have, dependents right now. And so, I ended up kind of upping my angel investments, and I've invested in probably 40 or 50 companies right now and probably 10 or 15 funds. Um, I think as an Asian family also, and I don't know if you guys ascribe to this, but my family kind of has just like one pot of money. And so like whatever my proceeds were from FCG have kind of just gone into this one pot of money. And I think like my brother invests some, my parents invest some.
Okay.
I trust them fully. So it's sitting there somewhere.
No, I think we're very different. I think we're very
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing us Indians do,
Yeah.
my wife, my in-laws, that without owning a house, I'm with you. I don't want to own a car. I think driving a car will be illegal in a decade. I think owning a house with the values of homes today is ridiculous. I'd rather pump that into investments, either
Totally.
angel or Apple and Nvidia stock, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, if
But
I put all the money in Nvidia stock, I may have had
yeah,
$700 million today. But
but we want to know, like, was there? I don't know. Maybe you used to fly economy and now you fly only
yeah,
first class in business. There must be something there that improved in your lifestyle, having a close to $100 million exit, other than just maybe nicer clothes. I don't know. There must be something that you did.
yeah, I'm wearing a sweatshirt my mom bought me when I was 15.
I love
So I think
it.
I think that no, definitely not clothes, but I think listen, I think first of all, our culture at FCG and Merama has always been to fly economy, just because everyone has to fly a lot, and I don't want to be the one guy flying, but personal, that's different, and that's fine. I think the biggest thing that's changed, Amit, has been security, has been feeling like I can take big swings and big risks, and I and my family will be fine, going forward. And that is a massive mental change to when I was at FCG. Because at FCG, I remember being so stressed and so anxious. People, I think with entrepreneurs, especially ones that have success, they see them as very put together, extremely smart, strategic, and they it was obviously that they were going to get the exit. But I think in reality, at every stage of that journey, that entrepreneur's house is on fire. Everyone's house is on fire in some way or the other. And there was periods of very, very low lows. We almost ran out of money in our second year, and I thought we would shut down the business. We were this close to shutting down the business. Same thing happened, and then we ended up having some of our investors rescue us. And so I remember being like, shit, I dropped out of school. I pissed my parents off. I took investors' money, $100 million of investors' money, and I pissed it all away. And now I'm just going to basically go back to school a lot older and having a failure under my belt. And my parents can be like, I told you. And so I was like, wow, I was borderline depressed at the time. And I think that I'd be like, I was just a failure. But now coming into my second venture, I can say, listen, I have a success under my belt. I'm financially secure now. I think that, I can take a really big swing on this one as long as I'm, smart about it. And, I know that I'll be okay. That does not mean I will make any dumb decisions. Like I still want to make very financially sound strategic moves, but, I can have fun, and I can have a lot more comfort, taking these risks.
It makes complete sense.
Should we go into the next swing? Should we
Yeah,
go
let's
into
go into
Merama?
the second venture. Tell
Sure.
us more about Merama.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we sold the company, it was right at the beginning of 2020, FCG, the car company. So right before COVID hit, and so we were basically all locked down as soon as this happened. And I ended up going back to school, by the way. I don't know if I told you. So actually, so to answer your question, to answer a separate question, is when Frontier Car Group started, and another, by the way, low, was I got kicked out of school. And I got kicked out of school in a pretty brutal way. So Harvard Business School has an attendance policy. But our company, as you mentioned, had companies all over the world. So I had to travel all over the place. So I was in class Monday and Tuesday in Boston, and I was going to Chile or Jakarta or Lagos the rest of the week. And I was killing myself, first of all, health-wise, but I was missing so much class. And the administration of HBS got so pissed off at me and, wrote me a very, very tough letter and kicked me out of school. And so, and my parents were extremely, extremely disappointed at this. And so that added to it was like, I got kicked out of school and I pissed everyone off and I lost a lot of money and I'll have to go beg for my place back. As soon as we sold the company, I knew I didn't want to stay at Naspers for that long. I resigned a few months later. Harvard very graciously took me back. So I ended up going back because I was a student again for a year. And classes were on Zoom, granted, but still I was a student. I just went back to business school. And
I did not know that. That's great.
Yeah,
and the way that Harvard took you back.
They were very nice about it. And honestly, they never said congratulations, but they did say, yeah, you can come back. And so I'll take it. But I think I got bored pretty quick within that time of just doing a few hours of class a day. I didn't know if I wanted to start and run another company. I had just done this, and again, I was busting my ass. I was traveling internationally 2 to 3 times a week, unbelievable amounts of travel. I think I did 450,000 miles each year that I was at FCG. 1 year at FCG, I stayed 310 nights in hotels, and so this was really crazy travel, and I didn't want to do much more of it. But I kind of fell in love with Latin America during FCG. It was by far our biggest region of the whole company, and Latin America was exploding. The unprecedented amounts of money were going into it. And I kind of came up with this idea that we ended up building. And at first, I actually was going to bring in a CEO. But then as soon as we said, hey, a lot of investors are interested, but they are requiring me to run the company, I decided to do it. But this time I got to run it with my best friend from business school. And I brought him in, and we've been having a great time.
How old were you when you went back after FCG to Harvard?
26.
26. Sabrina, 26, $100 million in the bank. I don't know about you, but for me, it'd be girls, alcohol, holidays with my buddies.
It's fantastic.
There's something not normal, Sujay. There's something not normal. After what you went through, you're hardwired to work hard. I get it. But with $100 million in the bank, and 26-year-old single man,
mm-hmm.
I know what everybody else would do. Really, it's like
I wish I could go back and do what he did and not waste time.
I'd be okay with $10 million at 26, Sabrina.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with $1 million at 26, Sabrina. Forget 100 or 10. You know what I mean? $100 million, 26 years old, single, decent looking. I'm not going to say good looking, to embarrass him.
Good looking.
Decent looking, Sabrina, decent looking. And here we are. He's thinking about starting another company in Latin America out of his comfort zone.
Did you already have your JD, or you got that before your MBA?
When I went back to school, I went back to both. So in Harvard Business
School.
The
JD MBA program?
Yeah, I did the JD
okay.
MBA.
What's that? That's law?
A law.
Laws, JD, and MBA business, yeah.
Okay. So you and your best friend decide Latin America is it. It's e-commerce is starting to grow there.
And a unicorn in a year.
What's that?
I said that Merama became a unicorn after 12 months when you did the B round, the B funding, with no less than Advent and SoftBank. SoftBank obviously is in the papers this week for all the wrong reasons. But you got the big heavyweights.
Fantastic.
Where's Merama today? Can you tell us a little bit about what Merama does and how are you as a company today?
Sure. I think, and by the way, I think that there's that's very generous of you. I think, yes, we became a unicorn in a year, but we have to remember this was the frothiest and most overvalued time of all venture capital, probably in the last 150 years. And we got very lucky. We were a recipient of that. So I think that we were in the right place at the right time. So I don't know how much we're truly valued at today, but I think a year in, that was a pretty generous valuation for what we were. The idea of Merama, I think that Latin America was growing so fast. And I think one of the things that happens when things grow so fast is people start buying stuff online. And especially in COVID. People were buying stuff online literally every day. And I think the idea really came from, Mexican consumers and Brazilian consumers were either buying kind of local products, which were traditionally low quality and low customer service, or international products, which were extremely expensive because of import regulation. And so there wasn't really any local brands, um, that were highly, high quality, high customer service, at prices that were interesting to the local consumer. And so, and I think in every other geography that we had seen, basically when this inflection point of e-commerce happened, there was always multi-billion-dollar e-commerce brands created. And so I think our idea was kind of to build hopefully a few of those brands. And, but in this case, we ended up acquiring a few brands, and we can build, use those as platforms to build from there rather than starting them from scratch, because there were some good early companies. And that's why we wanted to raise a decent amount of money pretty early. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, were you looking for like, okay, where's the Allbirds? Where's the Bombas? Where are these Gymsharks? Where are these
Sure.
D2C brands in Mexico
Yeah.
and Brazil today? Or did you have to help and create them because they were under $2 million in revenue?
Correct. I think we had to create, we had to build a lot. I mean, there were some companies that had great platforms and maybe were selling 5-10 million in revenue or something like that. The other thing is, I think we were very interested in very inelastic products, products that were weathering the storm of ups and downs of the macro. And so, people were buying Allbirds and Bomba socks at the peak of the market when they were getting paid super well, had tons of disposable income because they were staying at home. But those companies are really struggling today because, people don't have that disposable income. But for things like supplements, for example, people take those in good times and bad times, cosmetics. And so I think that that's really been the focus of Merama recently, is products that really can survive a lot of different climates.
What does Merama stand for?
It's funny because we didn't know. I think I'm kind of creative, and I'm not that creative at all. And coming up with a name was such a pain in the ass. And the two dominant platforms of e-commerce in Latin America are Mercado Libre and Amazon.
Okay, and Amazon.
Oh, wow.
We decided to just take the first 3 letters of each and stick them together.
I did not get that when I was
it kind of sounded Latin, which was kind of cool. So that was a huge coincidence.
I like that.
For your next company, whatever you decide to do, I went through this process of acquiring a name, and I have another Latin name for you. It's called Panabana. Panabana.
Okay.
Panabana. And I acquired the panabana.com. I even created a logo. So not really. I have a whole deck. I've created a logo.
Sujay wants to be your next partner in the next venture.
I thought, you know what I thought? I thought Copacabana. I thought the Amazon. I thought Latin American. I'm in Chile. I need to create a brand, a D2C brand. I thought, you know what? The beach category doesn't have a brand that I can think of. There's somebody doing towels, slippers, shoes. But when I go to the beach, which beach towel, beach chair, beach bag, beach hat, there's no brand under that.
Yeah.
So I have the name registered. I have everything ready, but I haven't started it. But when I do, I'll give you a call for Merama.
Great. Awesome. It's a cool category.
Thank
Sujay,
you.
tell us about ReSight Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Something you and your brother did together years back.
Yeah, this was a long time ago. This was when we were growing up. My father, again, I think this was a lot of inspiration from my parents, but I think my father was, a senior guy at a company called Bausch & Lomb, which is a big contact lens eye care company. And so obviously eye care, and my brother and I have had just awful eyesight forever, and I've worn glasses since I was, a baby. And I think that one of the things that we saw was when we went to India, we were doing a tour of various eye-related hospitals with my dad. And there was one that was giving totally free eye care, free glasses to underprivileged communities in a few areas in India, particularly in Benares or Varanasi. And so we decided to raise money locally and send it to various hospitals in India that were giving free eye care. And particularly for macular degeneration and glaucoma, because that's run in our family. And so basically, ReSight was essentially raising a lot of capital locally. Not a lot. I mean, I think over the course of ReSight, we probably raised $50,000 or $100,000. But we were able to fund, I think, roughly 25 surgeries a year. And so, I think it was a cool thing to be a part of, and a cool, initiative to start. And, we got reports, and we got like kind of before and after pictures of various patients, which is a pretty fulfilling thing.
Oh, that's
at a young
great.
age.
There is a lot of these marketplace aggregators out there, most
Sure.
notably maybe Thrasho. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably the one most known in terms of funding, and they've taken a beating in the markets, in valuation. Many of the brands that they've invested in are no longer around, have gone under. You know, what's Merama's competitive advantage, and why is Merama? How are they different? Are you
Sure.
looking at different deals, or is it just a geographic thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. When we started the business, Thrasio was like flying. It
Yeah.
was again, we started the business at like the frothiest time in the market. And money was being thrown around with zero diligence. Anyone could raise money. And so, I think Thrasio was one of the hottest companies at the time. And, the idea basically, for those that don't know, is Amazon in the US, I think, has like 50,000 pretty notable sellers, selling anything from like tableware to, couches to toaster ovens, whatever. And I think that the idea was they operate quite profitably. And so, almost like a roll up, we can just go buy hundreds and hundreds of these businesses and then run them ourselves and make them even more profitable. And so that spurred like the whole generation of like 100 other companies that did the exact same thing. And it was easy actually to tell investors early that we're kind of like a Thrasio of Latin America, because Thrasio was such a cool company at the time that it made us look good. But we realized really early on that there's just nothing to buy in Latin America, to be honest. I mean, you could buy a couple of platform companies and build from there. But if you wanted to build a multi-billion-dollar company by just sticking existing businesses together, you couldn't do it, or you couldn't do it in a sustainable way. Diligence was very hard with Latin American companies. The average company was very small because, again, e-commerce is very nascent in Latin America. People are just starting. It's just I think it's less than 10% the size of the US. And so it's growing faster than anywhere else in the world, but it's still very small. And so we couldn't do that. Latin America was much more about a growth story. And so I think the core difference between us is we're not rolling up companies. We own basically 10 prominent brands. That's it. And I think if you ask me in a year from now, we'll still own 10 prominent brands. And we're just focused on growing and expanding those 10 brands, almost like a small holding company. And so, I think that that's why we've been able to survive, because of our focus on growth rather than our focus on just rolling various companies up.
Okay. Fantastic.
Success, Sabrina, success.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's
it's TBD right now, but I think it's a cool market, and I think some things are going right, some things are going wrong. So
Yeah.
But overall,
Like every business, right?
Yeah, totally.
We ask all our guests what success means to them. So at this point in your life, what is your definition of success? Personal, professional, your definition of success.
Yeah, I think that my professional definition of success is that, either an industry or a group of people has been fundamentally impacted by something that you've built. And I think that, that's what made me the most proud, which was when I showed up in Nigeria, 2 years after we started FCG, and the Uber driver there had sold his personal car via our service, without knowing who I was, but it was very cool. Our signs were everywhere and everyone talked about our service. And that kind of changed how the used car industry functioned in a massive country like Nigeria. So I think impacting a group of people or impacting industry is my definition of professional success. And then I think personal success is that stability I mentioned. I think that, being very calm that, my family will be taken care of. And I think that that's my personal level of success. And, I can kind of do whatever I want and, end up, I want to do something philanthropic or something that kind of can help people more than Merama after. That would be my next step. But yeah, I think those are my two definitions.
So Jay, trying to figure out the dates, like when you were in Harvard, you know, when you started, you're about 30 years old now?
I just turned 30 actually, 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun? Did you throw yourself a big 30th bash?
Yeah, I did. I had two big parties actually, one in London, one in New York. And yeah, we had a ton of fun. And yeah, I mean, I think that's actually, you asked me earlier, where do I spend my money? I really spend it more on experiences. Like there were very expensive weekends, but like, you know, I got to bring friends from all over the world together, and yeah, it was really fun. So I think that's what I do for fun. I love music festivals. I love playing tennis. I mean, I do a you know, I spend half my day, because the cool thing is that starting a company during COVID is that you can kind of live anywhere, because the workplace was made to be more remote. And so I spend a week or two a month in London, which is where my partner is, and then a week or two in Mexico City or Sao Paulo, which is where business is. And it's kind of cool because in London, Latin America doesn't wake up till like 1 p.m. So I have half the day to kind of do whatever I want, work out, play tennis. So yeah, I enjoy myself quite a bit.
Do you still play table tennis?
I stopped playing table tennis.
You still play it? We said in our intro that you were ranked number 2 or 2 in the US for your age group in table tennis. I mean, how cool is that?
12 or something. I think I don't think it was that. I don't think that there were so many people in that group.
I think Sabrina.
There's a lot more than 2.
I think Sabrina and my definition of success will be if we're invited to your 40th bash. Right, Sabrina?
Yeah, sure. You will be.
Add us to the list, please. But you know, as being 30, I'm looking forward to hearing one day in your 40s, 50s, 60s if success is still the same or it's evolved. So hopefully, you know, this podcast grows and we're a phenomenon and you're back and you can share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to.
Sujay, we do a rapid fire, but before the rapid fire, there are a couple of things that I've jotted down here that I'd like to talk to you about. We actually don't have time for all 3. So I want to just tell them what the 3 topics are and tell me which one you feel like talking about. Okay. Number 1, ethics and regulation of AI. And, you know, are we going to be doomsday, you know, like Terminator scenario? 2, my favorite and friend of the pod, Vivek Ramaswamy, and his chances for winning the presidential election. And number 3, the most depressing topic is, has WW3 begun? Which one would you like to get into?
I mean, I think that none of the 3 topics are ones I have any expertise in, but I think Vivek Ramaswamy is kind of a funny one because the debate's today, actually, the third GOP debate.
What are your thoughts?
Evening. I actually really like Vivek Ramaswamy. He's actually a slight friend of the family too, and so you know, I think that, and obviously he's an entrepreneur, which I very much respect. Plus in pharmaceuticals, which, you know, is my father's industry. You know, listen, I think that his foreign policy experience is a little bit difficult. I think he's backtracked a little bit on Israel-Palestine recently, but I think that he is the most politically incorrect, which I love, in the sense of he's very blunt about what he would do. And I think that rubs people the wrong way. So I think a lot of the negative criticism he's received has been more on his tone and how he presents things, which comes off as arrogant. But I think that in terms of, you know, how he would reform education, how he would reform healthcare, now his views on foreign policy. Plus, I like that he's very young and vivacious. And so he's probably one of my 2 favorite candidates of the GOP. I'm not a Republican per se. I like Nikki Haley a lot.
Nikki.
And not just because they're both slightly Indian, but I think that she's just been a steady force as well, and very logical. But yeah, I think that it's going to be a difficult election, and it puts the U.S. in a tough spot. One thing about working across the world is the U.S. political scene has been, you know, a thing of jokes.
A laughing stock, no doubt.
A laughing stock. And unfortunately, you know, I think where the polling is at today, it would be near impossible for anyone else but Trump to get the GOP nomination. So
unless he's
right
invited
now to win the election.
But even if he's indicted, I think that they would put off anything until post-election, and then he can pardon himself if he's elected. So
I really like Vivek. I've been following him and listening to everything he said. Not only his confidence and his charisma, but also his policies. Some of them are a bit extreme, like the shutting down of the FBI overnight and things like that. But where he got me, where I changed my mind a little bit, was when he started talking about the solution for gun control or for school shootings is to have 3 security guards in every school with guns. So his solution was to have more guns and more people with guns in schools. For anybody outside the US, I mean, when they hear that, they just think America has just lost it.
No, I understand. Yeah, one of the sad realities of like politics these days is that there's so many constituents that they still have to appeal to as a GOP party.
Yeah,
and
the NRA.
Yeah, and so it's just probably a difficult stance that he has to take. I hope at least that's the hopeful part.
Again, I appreciate you answering that question as well, candidly. Sabrina, shall we start the rapid fire?
Let's do it. Okay, so rapid fire questions. First answer that comes to your mind. And first one, a book that has had the most impact in your life.
Being Mortal by Atul Gawande, or Behind the Beautiful Forevers by Catherine Bu.
Okay. So I was going to ask who's going to be the first trillionaire between Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Sam Altman, but I'm changing the question.
Okay.
Who would you like to have dinner between SBF, Elizabeth Holmes, or Adam Newman?
Who would I like to have dinner between the 3? Probably Elizabeth Holmes. I think that her heart was in the right place at the beginning, and I think she was just a young entrepreneur that got caught up in so much stuff. But I think she's a brilliant person, and I think that she just ended up having to cover up a lot of things, which led her into a hole. But I think that she probably had some good technology in there. I don't know if I was craving dinner with any of the 3, but I guess Elizabeth Holmes.
I was wondering if you were going to say that. Yeah. Okay, if you have a bucket list, what's next on the list to do?
Run a marathon.
Okay. Wow. You plan on doing it? Like, are you training?
Yeah, I've done 5 or 6 half marathons, and my goal in life has always been to run a marathon. So
that's 42 kilometers instead of 21, right?
Yeah, probably 50 something kilometers.
I've ran 3 half marathons, and every time I think of training for a full, and I'm like, no, I can't. I don't want to run 26 miles.
No, 26, maybe 40 kilometers.
What's one critical question that you always ask a job applicant?
One critical question that you always ask a job applicant. Interesting. I think that
no one said this was going to be easy, Sujay.
Yeah, no. I think that one critical question I always ask is why they left their previous job, and ask for a candid answer. I think one of the things that I've always respected the most or tried to hire is based on loyalty, because startups always go through toughest times, and if we get great talent, they're always going to be getting recruited left and right from other companies. So I always want to know stories of why they left and how long they stayed at their last companies.
And I'm sure you could tell when they're being honest.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And we can check. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Your go-to social media platform when you are in the loo?
Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He and I have this debate the last few episodes.
No, I know. I mean, it's just.
I'm Instagram.
Yeah.
I feel for men it's YouTube or Twitter.
What?
For men it's YouTube because they're learning something, or Twitter because they want to have a laugh, so they read Bill Ackmans of the world versus Elon Musk.
I read a decent amount of Twitter, but I think but yeah, just answering honestly, probably just open it up, flick through, and then leave. My
whole view of you has changed with that answer, just like Vivek Ramaswamy. My whole view of you has changed. Okay, you've obviously achieved a lot, Sujay, in your short lifespan. What is left? What is that one thing that you're working towards that will fulfill you? And then you might actually say, I'm retired.
No, I mean, I think that I probably wouldn't start another company after Merama, just because I went. You guys didn't ask this, but I went to law school because I think the law is fascinating. And
I
I think one
actually
of the,
was, oops, I was going to ask you that, and then we
yeah.
continue.
Sabrina's a
Yeah.
lawyer. Sabrina, you were a
Yeah.
lawyer.
So the first summer after law school, I was a public defender in San Francisco. I interned at the public defenders in San Francisco. And my life dream is actually to be a public defender. And so I think I want to take the bar and see clients and defend them in court. That would be my life dream professionally.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was actually going to do that while handing off the CEO reins of Merama at the beginning, and then go become a lawyer. And then I said, okay, I have one more, and then I'll do it after. But I'm actually studying for the bar right now, simultaneously with running
Okay.
Merama.
And in California?
It would be in Texas where my parents are, but it's universal now. So,
Where in Texas are your
yeah.
parents?
Just north of Houston in the Woodlands.
Oh, very cool. I'm in San Antonio.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're close-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And any desire, if you come back to Texas and do that, any desire to run for office one day? Is that
Probably not. My brother has aspirations too.
okay?
But no, probably not. I don't think that I would be a good campaigner. And, I think that a lot of politics is more about the logistics and process rather than actually espousing your views. So
Yeah.
probably not.
I actually, speaking of law, not Suits, but Boston Legal is one of my best shows. I don't know if you've seen it.
There's so many good legal shows. But there's
Awesome. Thank you so much for your honest answers. And, it's been fun getting to know you. I know we've had a couple of work calls, but this was a real good time. And I actually hope we meet in person sometime soon. And tell you more about Panabana.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me.
I have to tell you, you are a brilliant mind, a brilliant entrepreneur, but more so, I respect how humble and kind-hearted you are. Truly, that just came out in this interview. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. It's been great getting to know you.
No, thank you both. It's very kind of you to have me.
Thank you. This has been a great episode of Indian Explorers. We hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and share it with others. Thank you, everyone.